welcome to another edition of Huns History. I'm Hansel, and joining me today is Kirk Tate. Hey, Kirk, how you doing?
Howdy, everybody. I'm doing fine, thank you.
Excellent. So, Kirk, we've got a lot to talk about.
I don't know if I'm up to the task, man.
Right. So, of course, I go way back with you, and you have lots of years before I even joined the club. And what are some things about Huns history or Huns myth and lore that you can share with us?
Yeah, so I did some research on the San Isidro Rugby Club, which is where our colors come from, that I found was interesting. Uh, as I think probably a lot of folks know, the club founder, Pat Lockridge, went down to Argentina when he was playing for the Blacks, and he was hooked up with the Alumni Club in Buenos Aires, which was the club of the Blacks founder, Carlos Puentes, who's a former Argentine Puma. And when he came back, he and led the Golds to break away and become the Huns. He suggested that the Huns play in not the Alumni colors, but the San Isidro rugby colors, the blue, black, and white hoops. And I was wondering about that and did some research on the San Isidro Rugby Club and found an article or an interview with an Irish expat wife of a San Isidro club founder. And apparently after an alumni game, a group of alumni players, they were at the post-match dinner, and one of them spilled wine on his slacks, his khaki slacks. And he took off his stained pants, and 10 of his teammates took off their pants in solidarity with him as a joke and as solidarity. And a club elder came in and was very offended, and those 11 players were suspended for the season because of their crudeness in being caught at the post-match social without pants on. And so those 11 players said, well, to hell with alumni, we'll go found our own rugby club. And they founded the San Isidro Rugby Club. And I like to think that Pat Lockridge was well aware of this when he chose those colors of men who were suspended by the big fancy club in town and went and founded their own club. And anyone who played for the Huns in the 70s and 80s knows just how incredibly on brand it is that the Huns would be wearing the colors of a team that was banned for not wearing pants, since most post-match socials were pretty much pants optional in those days.
That's pretty awesome. And I think you might have started a new tradition with our after-match social.
It would really be more renewing an old tradition, honestly.
Yeah, it's what Mikey does every time anyway. So
yeah, pretty much.
It's pretty awesome. Would it be cool to go back and for our 50th anniversary or something and play San Isidro?
Oh, that would be awesome. And Joaquin's dad was a San Isidro player.
Well, maybe we'll have
Che Guevara was a San Isidro Rugby Club player.
Yeah, we'll look into that one.
Yeah.
So you came on the Huns as a coach. You had playing years with the Blacks, correct? And UT.
I started in '83, played 2 years for the Huns.
Okay.
And then there was no UT Rugby Club at that point, and all the college students in town played either Huns or Blacks. And at the end of the spring every year, there was a 1-weekend winner-take-all collegiate tournament. And so all the UT students who played for the Huns and Blacks would get together, we'd practice for a week, and then we'd go out, borrow a set of jerseys, and play as the UT Rugby Club in this tournament. And in '85, we said, why don't we just make this a club, left our respective clubs to create the UT Rugby Club in '85. And then after I graduated, I wanted to play Division I rugby. The Huns at that time were Division II. So I went over to the Blacks, and Jack didn't talk to me for 5 years. And
doesn't sound like Jack.
I joke, it wasn't that bad, but and I played 10 years for the Blacks. And then when my knees started to wear out, I went back to coach UT for 3 seasons with one of my teammates from that first year of UT who was a Black, and I was a Hun. And that was Randy Lott, and we coached UT for 3 seasons. And then I came back to the Huns. So it was, basically 20 years full circle in my rugby career to come back to coaching the Huns in 2001. First as an assistant for Terry Stevenson, Nate Stevenson's father,
Hmm.
and then as the head coach.
Excellent. And so, man, that spans a lot of years, from when you started back with the Huns as coach, and you've obviously went through a lot of transitions, a lot of different focuses with the clubs until you went, and I believe it was 2016 you went to the Grays, or 2017?
Fall of 2016. Yeah.
Okay. So let's talk about that time period. That was a massive time period,
Sure.
but like different people you worked with, different transitions. What things kind of stand out?
Yeah. Well, first off, just a point of confession. It was my intention and my goal and my desire to coach Division I rugby. And at that time, and in fact, it's still largely true today, to get hired as a Division I coach, men's coach, you pretty much have to be a foreigner. And I knew that in Austin, the only way I was going to become a Division I men's coach was to coach a club into Division I. You know, the Blacks have been foreign coach since early in my career with the Blacks, since the early 90s, and they haven't had an American coach in 30 years. So I from day one had in my sights a goal of competing in Division I as a coach. But when I came to the Huns, um, it was a period of transition with older players stepping out, and then Terry Stevenson had to step away midway through the season, and we were in a really tough place. The club was dead last, was almost guaranteed to lose all their games, was looking at relegation, and I took over and at the end of a losing season, and with the job of rebuilding it. And it was the real key was from a cultural standpoint. Um, the club had gotten into a place where they were starting players who didn't come to practice because they were talented and they felt like, man, we can't afford to play without these guys. And I basically turned it around to, I think the big key was basically saying, no, this club belongs to the people who are putting the time and the effort in. And there was a watershed game. We went to Fort Worth. It was one of those weekends where it snowed and there was, fractions of an inch of snow, but the roads were icy and everything shuts down. And we went to Fort Worth with 11 people, borrowed a few people as whores, lost by 80 some odd points, and was talking to the guys in the bar afterwards. Mike Martin was the starting tight head. Chud was the starting hooker. Luis, Caleb McLean, these guys were all there, and basically said, look, screw all those other people who aren't here. This is your club. You're the ones who made the trip in the snow to play, under shorthanded and lose a game by 80 points. And this is your club, not anybody else's club. And we'll start and we'll rebuild it from here. And, basically said, this isn't the last game of a losing season. This is a preseason match for next year. And we'll start the building process now. And I think, so I think the theme was in all of these transitions has been culture and the evolving the culture and doing it in a way that everybody buys into and that everybody has input into and ownership on. Sometimes I went astray, and when I did, it was because I was trying to force too much my vision of the culture instead of leading an organic communal change of the culture. And so I think that's really the key thread through it all is building culture and the right kind of culture.
I can't agree more. And, I think I can speak on behalf of Adam, current head coach, and Wheezy, current director of rugby, and myself, who played under you and learned that from you, that really influenced the way we do things still with the Huns. So I know we didn't talk about this question before, but I'm going to go ahead and throw it out there. Who influenced you? Like, did you just come out with this, or did you have other people growing
yeah,
up?
no, a lot of people influenced me. From a coaching perspective, my biggest influence was one of my high school football coaches, a guy named Ebby Neptune, who the Wellborns would know well. He was the athletic director when they were there. Ebby was, coached me when I was in high school. He was my offensive line coach, and he was a coach who made every player, regardless of where they were on the depth chart, feel like they were important and a center of his attention. And you genuinely got the sense that Ebby cared about you as a player. Then when I went into from a rugby perspective, a captain I played with at the Blacks, a second row partner named Bernie McCarty.
Mm-hmm.
Bernie was a fantastic leader, and very much lead from the front, do everything that he's asking everybody else to do, and do it harder, and do it with more dedication. And really trying to come out there. And then when I was playing for the Blacks, we had a Kiwi coach come in named Brian Thornalley for a couple of years. And Brian, again, was a very much a positive guy, very much a can-do sort of guy. He was a guy who came in and told us, "You're going to beat the Quins. We're going to knock them over." And we're all thinking, "You're nuts. Nobody beats the Quins." And sure enough, we did. He's and so I would say those have been my influences um, from a sports perspective. And then a lot of what I've learned about, as just in terms of leadership generally, I learned from my father.
Gotcha. That's awesome. Yeah, you mentioned Ebby Neptune. I'm sitting about half a mile away from Ebby Neptune Field, Chaparral Stadium.
Yep.
So I don't think you're the only person influenced by that man.
Oh no, Ebby.
His name is
Ebby
across the gate.
Ebby was a great coach.
Yeah, excellent.
He was a big influence on me.
Yeah, definitely. You are the only Hun that is both in the Huns Hall of Fame and TRU Hall of Fame, and those both were created. The TRU Hall of Fame is a little older, has a lot more members. The Huns Hall of Fame being created as of last year. Talk about those Hall of Fames and those bigger kind of groups and the importance of those.
Well, so the TRU Hall of Fame was really a pet project of Doug Corrigan, who was one of our referees and a member of the TRU board when I was elected president, and a member of the Woodlands Club. Mm-hmm. And Doug had been pushing this idea for a number of years, and it hadn't gotten any traction. And when I came onto the TRU board, I had been elected sort of with a mandate of the TRU is not doing enough to put back into the community and help develop the game. And Doug had this idea, and to me it seemed like, wow, here's low-hanging fruit and an eager guy who wants to do the work. So let's run with that. And at the time, I did not expect, had no inclination or idea that I would ever be a member. Especially since that first class included an Eagle, a president or CEO of USA Rugby, people who had helped founded the National Union, a really pretty impressive group of folks. It was, I was inducted, I think, in the third class that went into the Hall of Fame. And even then, I almost declined the nomination because I felt, as a sitting TRU president, it was slightly inappropriate for me to be active and nominated. But ultimately, what swung it for me was, I figured if I was going to be inducted, my parents are in their 80s, and it would be nice for it to happen when they would be able to come and enjoy the ceremony, which they were. So that was really special. It's a really interesting group of people. Not only are they highly accomplished in a lot of different areas in life, and have obviously highly accomplished in rugby, but as much as some of us have fought with or disliked one another through the last 3-4 decades, when we get together as a Hall of Fame group and we're on calls talking about people, it's amazing how collegial that group is. And it's been a really special thing to be a part of, not just in terms of the honor of being in the group, but just a pleasure, the time interacting with those folks at the banquets, after the banquets, in calls, selecting the next year's class. It's really been a neat experience. And I think it does a lot to connect the generations in our sport and take that sense of culture that we're talking about at the club level and expand it out to the union level and the community level, and make that sense of culture not local, but statewide. And I think that is really important. And I don't, when the concept was proposed, I didn't appreciate that about it. I was just looking for some easy wins as a new president to show, hey, look, here's things that we're doing. We're actually taking your money and we're doing things for the union that you've been asking us to do. And I'm going to be effective and not just, uh, just mark my time here. But as we've gotten into it, it's become a really positive thing. And I think and it is very close now with the donations and stuff that it's generated. Started out, it was an investment. It cost us money, but it's coming very close now to being revenue neutral, and I expect it'll be revenue generating within another year or two.
That's awesome. That's great news. So just to kind of wrap up, you have this glimpse that not many people in the rugby community get, and that is being involved, and for so long, especially in the administrative side of things. So you've been involved with the Huns Club, you've been involved with TRU, you're involved with USAR. What advice would you give an up and coming rugby player, somebody that was really looking at that administrative side of things, not necessarily just coaching and playing, but wanting to get more involved? What kind of advice would you give, and what would you tell them to look out for?
Well, from an advice standpoint, just get stuck in early. I mean, I was a vice president and a treasurer of my college club back when I was 21, 22 years old. Then when I came to play for the Blacks, by the time I retired, I was a president of the Blacks at age 33. So, and then coaching at UT, was a collegiate secretary on collegiate competitions committees. Just get stuck in, go and get involved in your club, get involved then from there to the union and there on up. Everything is, it's really just more of the same, but at a higher level, with a little bit more complexity and experience, required. But at its core, the discipline, the work ethic, the changing your thought pattern to think not just about yourself or your teammates, but what is the next generation of players going to enjoy. Whether you're doing that as an officer in your college club, or you're doing that as an officer in your senior club, or whether you're doing that at a union level, it's the same thought process. You're just becoming more practiced and better at it, and thinking broader and bigger as you move up the ladder. So I'd get stuck in. I'd say from a risk standpoint, watch out for thinking that you're all that. I've made that mistake far too many times, and a little bit of humility goes a long, long way. And especially when you're getting started, if you come in with too much confidence, when you fall on your face, it's that much more embarrassing and that much harder to laugh off. And if you come in without making a whole lot of pretenses about how great you are, then when you inevitably fall, because we all do again and again and again, you can say, well, I'll watch out for that next time,
yeah,
and move on. So and realize too that and this is another one of those hindsight is 2020 things. Realize too that the folks that you might be looking sideways at in terms of their performance in the job, a lot of times they are people who've been doing it for 30, 40, 50 years. And, they might know what they're talking about. And I don't mean that so much as me, but as like the people that I, you know, talked crap about when I was coming in, and then I get to this point and go, whoo, I'm surprised he didn't slap me.
Definitely.
So yeah, I would say get stuck in and stay as humble as you can. And the mistakes are going to happen, but just press on.
It's great rugby admin advice and great life advice, Kirk. Well, I want to thank you for joining us,
Hey, no problem.
and keep in touch, and hope you stay safe. And
Will
thanks
do.
everybody out there.
Will do.
The Huns.
Right on.